Alright, here we go. Today we're breaking down the matchup for the UFC flyweight belt between Joshua Van and Tatsuro Taira. This is going to be a fight between Van's high volume striking against Taira's probably division best grappling and submission game. In this video we're going to compare both fighters' skills, we're going to see who holds the advantages in each phase of the fight. By the end of this video you're going to know where each man's dangerous, where their vulnerabilities lie, and which fighter the numbers say has the edge. Joshua Van is a fast-paced pressure striker. He thrives on volume and really slick boxing. He pushes a relentless pace, he throws combinations and bunches and constantly forcing opponents to deal with his activity. He's especially effective at controlling exchanges. He got really quick hands, really clean counters, and the ability to build momentum as the fight goes into the later rounds. His confidence and composure allow him to stay aggressive without losing structure, and the longer he keeps the fight standing, the more his output and precision begin to overwhelm his opponents. Joshua Van is dangerous when he's dictating the pace on the feet, but his style leaves openings. He has an aggressive boxing approach that leaves him open to counters, and opponents that want to mix in grappling really disrupt his rhythm. Because he relies so heavily on striking when he's forced into takedown battles or prolonged grappling sequences, that can slow his output and take away his biggest advantage. When opponents change levels and pull the fight into other phases, his effectiveness really starts to dip. Tatsuro Taira is one of the most technically dangerous grapplers in the flyweight division. His whole game is built around smooth transitions, positional control, and a relentless submission threat when he gets someone to the mat. He's especially effective at chaining together takedowns, advancing position, and capitalizing on even the smallest mistakes that an opponent may make. What makes him so dangerous is how calm and methodical he is while he's hunting submissions, steadily tightening control until openings appear. When Tatsuro Taira establishes his grappling rhythm, opponents find themselves defending rather than attacking. However, he does have weaknesses. He's extremely dangerous on the ground, we all know that, but his game can become more vulnerable when it stays standing. His striking's underrated and better than you might think, but it hasn't been really tested against high-volume pressure strikers who can force fast-paced exchanges. Opponents who maintain distance, they defend the takedowns, and they keep the fight in open space can limit his ability to fight on the ground where he's strongest. When he can't establish his grappling early, the fight can become more competitive than what he would prefer. Now it's time to look at these two fighters in the Fighter Index tell of the tape. Joshua Van enters this fight at 16-2 overall and 9-1 in the UFC, while Tatsuro Taira holds an 18-1 overall record and is 8-1 in the UFC. Physically, Taira has a 2-inch height advantage at 5'7" compared to Van's 5'5", but he also carries a huge 5-inch reach advantage over Van. Stylistically, both fighters compete from the orthodox stance, setting up a matchup where range and skill differences could play a major role. Right now, Van is on a 5-fight win streak, while Taira is on a 2-fight win streak. When it comes to knockout victories, Van leads 7-5, showing that his striking finishing ability. In submissions, the advantage goes to Taira. He has 8 submission wins compared to Van's 2, highlighting his dangerous grappling game. When it comes to first round finishes, Taira again holds the edge. He has 8 first round finishes compared to 3 for Van, proving how quickly he can end fights and that he's a fairly fast starter. But in decision victories, Van leads 7-5, reflecting his experience winning longer, higher paced fights. Now it's time to break these fighters down using the Fighter Index scale. We break down the skills in each phase of the fight and score each skill to better understand where a fighter is strongest and where they're vulnerable. All Fighter Index scores are based on a scale of 1 to 10. All the scores are subjective and can change as a fighter evolves from fight to fight. Here's how it works. There are 4 pillars that represent a skill set, and 4 skills that make up each pillar. Each skill is scored and the number value represents a level, 1 as being non-functional and 10 being rare or generational. Then at the end of the video, we're going to take the scores of each skill in the pillars and give each fighter a Fighter Index score that represents their overall skill set. Pillar 1, Fight IQ and Athletic Tools. Joshua Van and Tatsuro Taira are competitive across several areas in this pillar. In Fight IQ, Taira holds a slight edge, 8-7, showing a strong ability to guide fights towards his grappling strengths. In athleticism, Taira again leads 8-7, bringing a bit more explosiveness and physical versatility. In stamina, both fighters are even at 8 apiece. They're both capable of maintaining a high pace throughout the fight. And in resolve, they remain tied at 8 again, showing toughness and the ability to push through difficult moments. But when you total it up, this pillar favors Tatsuro Taira. Pillar 2, striking stand-up defense. I watched a lot of fights on these two guys, and the result of this pillar is probably going to surprise you as much as it surprised me. Both fighters bring dangerous weapons on the feet, and in striking, Joshua Van holds the edge 8-7 thanks to his fast hands, volume, ability to pressure opponents with combinations, and his counters in the pocket. But in the clinch, the advantage goes to Taira, who scores 8-6, where his grappling instincts make him dangerous against the fence or any body-to-body. In striking defense, Taira again leads 7-6, showing slightly cleaner defensive positioning. In the fights I watched, Van absorbs a lot of damage even from competent strikers. And in chin, both fighters are even at 7, both showing solid durability so far in their careers. When these scores are combined, this pillar slightly favors Tatsuro Taira. Told you you'd be surprised. Pillar 3, grappling and control. I'm going to be real honest here. If you're watching this, you know what Tatsuro Taira does, and you also know that Joshua Van isn't exactly known for his grappling and submission acumen. I think we all know how this pillar is going to turn out. In wrestling, Tatsuro Taira leads 8-6, showing the stronger ability to initiate grappling exchanges. In takedown offense, the gap widens 8-5, reflecting his constant ability to bring opponents to the mat. In top control, Taira again leads 8-5, giving a clear advantage in maintaining dominant positions once the fight hits the ground. And in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the difference becomes even more significant when Taira is scoring a 9 compared to Joshua Van's 6, highlighting his elite submission threat. When everything is added together, this pillar clearly favors Tatsuro Taira. Pillar 4, defense, scrambles, and ground survival. This pillar really focuses on how a fighter handles difficult positions. In takedown defense, Tatsuro Taira holds a slight edge 8-7 over Josh Van, showing a stronger ability to neutralize grappling attempts. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu defense, Taira again leads 8-7, which represents his submission awareness and positional safety on the ground. Off the back, the gap widens with Taira scoring a 7 compared to Van's 5, giving him the more active and dangerous bottom game. And in scrambles, Taira holds another narrow advantage 8-7, showing a slightly better ability to transition and recover position during wild or chaotic grappling exchanges. When these scores are combined, this pillar favors Tatsuro Taira. Now when you take everything from the 4 pillars and put it together, this is where the fight really starts to make sense. This is less about individual skills and more about how those skills are implemented once the fight starts. Who's controlling the pace? Who's forcing their style? Where is each fighter most dangerous? Because on paper, this matchup looks competitive, but when you break it down phase by phase, you start to see a very clear pattern in how this fight is likely to play out. In Pillar 1, Taira has the edge. He's slightly more composed and brings more physical versatility, which helps him guide the pace of the fight. In Pillar 2, even on the feet, Taira has a slight advantage, not because he's the better striker, but because he's more defensively sound and more dangerous when exchanges close into the clinch. In Pillar 3, in grappling, Taira clearly takes over. He's more consistent in getting the fight to the ground, controlling position, and posing a real submission threat. And defensively, Taira's harder to deal with. He's more secure in bad positions, more active off his back, and better in transitions. So this fight is about danger versus control. Van is the more aggressive striker, but Taira has the advantage in structure, in positioning, and control across nearly every phase of the fight. Now we look at both fighters' path to victory based on what we learned from the 4 pillars. Joshua Van wins this fight by turning it into a striking battle and limiting the grappling exchanges where Tatsuro Taira holds his biggest advantages. Van's clearest path is using his speed and boxing volume to control the pace, forcing Taira to deal with constant pressure on the feet. If Van can manage distance, defend early takedown attempts, and keep the fight standing, his striking output can start to build momentum over time. The key is making Taira work to close distance while landing clean combinations and forcing him into extended striking rounds. If Van keeps the fight upright and pushes a high pace, he gives himself the best chance to neutralize Taira's grappling and win the fight through volume and pressure. Tatsuro Taira wins this fight by steering it into the grappling phases where he holds the clearest advantages over Joshua Van. His path is built around closing distance, mixing in takedown attempts, and forcing Van to defend on the mat instead of building momentum with his boxing. Once the fight hits the ground, Taira's positional control and submission threat allow him to steadily advance and create finishing opportunities. The key for Taira is disrupting Van's striking rhythm early, using clinch entries and takedowns to slow the pace of the fight. If Taira consistently brings the fight into grappling exchanges, his control and submission game can begin to take over. When the scores are totaled, Tatsuro Taira finishes with a 7.8 fighter index score compared to 6.6 for Joshua Van. That difference reflects Taira's strong advantages across the grappling phases and his ability to control where the fight takes place. Van's striking volume and pressure keep him dangerous on the feet, but the index suggests Taira holds the more complete skill set across the 4 pillars. On paper, the numbers lean clearly towards Taira, though Van's pace and boxing still give him a path if he can keep the fight standing. And that's the breakdown for Joshua Van and Tatsuro Taira using the fighter index. The numbers point towards Taira's grappling and control as the biggest overall edge. However, Van's speed and striking pressure make this matchup dangerous if the fight stays on the feet. The question is, who are you picking? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next fighter index analysis.